I'm Stacy Martin with the Martin Dream to Home team at Keller Williams Realty, and today we have Helen Krause with us from New World Title. Hi, Helen.
Hi, Stacy. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So we have a couple questions we wanted to ask today just to help people along with their home buying journey. So I'll start with what role does the title company play and who do you represent?
That is a great question. I feel like the title company is sort of like a hidden part of the real estate transaction. Clients typically know they need a realtor to help them, find the house and guide them through the process, and then a mortgage company to help them with the financing. And then it's like, what do we do? So there's a couple different pieces. The first one I would really say is research. So once the contract comes in, we are doing what's called a title search or title abstract, and we're looking to see everything we can find out on record with the property. So we want to make sure that the actual seller in the contract is truly who owns the house. And we want to make sure any mortgages they may have, they're going to be paying those off. We don't want the buyer to inherit, a seller's mortgage, a prior owner mortgage, any sort of liens or judgments. So we're doing all this research, make sure the seller's not in bankruptcy, all different types of things like that, and make sure everyone who owns the house is signing off on that sale. So a lot of it's research. Another piece is communication. We're communicating thoroughly with the real estate agents on both sides of the transaction, the mortgage company that's currently helping the buyer, the mortgage company that we need to pay off. We're working with the counties, like homeowners associations, condo associations, all the different parties to make sure that everybody is paid properly. And we are just gathering that information, communicating, and finalizing all the documents so we can make sure that it's really transferred from the seller to buyer in a legal way. In addition to that, we conduct the actual closing or the paperwork is signed. And then there's a whole role called post closing. So after closing, we have to make sure it's recorded properly. And then we're dispersing the funds and paperwork and that sort of thing. So there's a lot of different pieces to it, but it seems very behind the scenes. The time that we actually see the purchaser, there's some communications, obviously, with getting information, but we only really see them at the closing. So it's kind of an interesting role that people don't always understand. And then as far as representation goes, we really just represent the contract. We are a neutral party, making sure things are being done properly and legally, as I mentioned before. So we don't represent the buyer or the seller. That's why they have real estate professionals like yourself, Stacy. Sometimes we'll have a client come in that does not have a real estate agent, and that can be really tricky because they don't have representation. And sometimes they think that we're going to help them with that, and we can't. We're not allowed to give them advice. We are really a neutral party.
Right. Well, thank you so much for that, Helen. And I've worked with you for a long time and the communication is spot on. Your whole team is great. So thank you so much for explaining that today for maybe folks who haven't had a chance to work with you yet. So thank you.
Thank
The
you.
next question is, do I need title insurance? And sometimes people feel like, is this just another expense I don't really want to pay? So, what is that and do I need it?
Absolutely. So, what title insurance is, first of all, if you have a mortgage, you have to purchase lender's title insurance that protects the lender. There's sometimes a myth, they're like, oh, if there's title insurance for the lender, aren't I protected? Unfortunately, you are not as the purchaser. So, there's owner's title insurance as well. And this is an important thing to purchase. It is optional though. So, the buyer, it protects them from things that we can't see. So, as I mentioned the title search earlier, we're doing all this research to make sure that the buyer's not inheriting a problem. But there are things, unfortunately, that we cannot see. If something was recorded or misindexed at the courthouse, we may not be able to find that. If there's fraud, unfortunately, there's a lot of fraud with real estate transactions, especially these days. So if all those owners didn't sign off or somebody wasn't the right person, that is, a huge thing with the title insurance as well. There's a lot of land scams out there. I know we've talked about that before, where people, sellers are selling land that aren't the actual owner of the property. So there's a lot of things going on, and the title insurance protects you against fraud and then any hidden defect that we don't find in the title insurance, or sorry, in the title search, excuse
Right,
me.
right.
So it is important. There are two different kinds. There's a basic policy and an enhanced policy. I'm happy to talk off the record with more detail on that, but we find most clients do purchase the enhanced policy. There's some extra protections for permitting issues and mechanics liens and post-closing forgery, where someone pretends to be you and tries to sell your house or gets a mortgage. There's a lot of protections with that, and clients seem to really appreciate those extra things.
Right, right. That's all true. And yes, we can do another call and take it offline with people too individually if they want to know more about that. So thank you. And the last question is, what about a survey? Do I need a survey? And, does it matter? And sometimes there's already a fence and there's just so many questions regarding that. So what do you think?
That's a great question, Stacy. So, if you are purchasing a condo, you do not need a survey. However, if you're purchasing even a townhome or a single family home, it is an option. I do find a lot of times people say, "Oh, there's a fence," like you said, and so I know where the property line is. Well, I will say fences are oftentimes not exactly on the property line. So, if you really want to know the exact property you're purchasing, it's called a house location survey. It's a drawing essentially. They show where the house is, where if there is a fence or a shed or patio, all of that, it shows where the property lines are and the distances from your home or patio or fence to the property line. So I do think it's very, very helpful. Your purchase, it's a huge purchase. It's important in my mind to see, not just the house, but like what is the land that you're purchasing that comes with it. And there are times that we find things on there that people are surprised to see. And especially if you're planning on putting in a pool or doing an addition. I had a closing once where I didn't know that the client wanted to put a pool in, and there was an easement across the back where it would make it difficult for her to put a pool where she wanted. So it is important, especially if you're going to be doing any extra work, or maybe there's no fence yet and you're putting one in. The fence company will want to see that. For the typical lots in Northern Virginia, they're not very expensive. They range from like 4 to 600. However, if it is a large, acreage or on a pipe stem or something unique about it, they can get more expensive from there.
Right. Perfect. Well, that's great information, Helen. Why don't you let everybody know how they can contact you?
Oh, thank you. Yes. So my name is Helen Krause, as you see, and my company is New World Title and Escrow. You can reach out to me by email at helen@newworldtitle.com, or my cell phone is 703-415-6498. And we have a great website too that'll help with, quotes and shows upcoming events and classes and things like that. So feel free to check out our website, www.newworldtitle.com.
Awesome. And again, I'm Stacy Martin with the Martin Dream to Home team at Keller Williams Realty. And my phone number is 703-795-3959. And we're at dreamtohome.com. So thanks so much, Helen, again. And everyone have a great day.
Thanks, Stacy.
See you next time.